I guess that's why they call it God's country. I saw the light in a sunrise, sitting back in a 40 on the muddy riverside, getting baptized in holy water and shine with the dogs running. Saved by the sound of a fin-found Dixie whistle in the wind, that'll get you heaven bound. The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around. This is God's country.
All right. Welcome to Politics in Scripture. I'm Meccico with Lisa Moreno, except Lisa Moreno could not be with me today. So we're going to miss Lisa this week, but we will return with her next week. And she is sorry that she could not make it, but there were some things that got in the way, and no problem. I've got this covered, Lisa. Don't worry about it. The show's Politics in Scripture, but we have, the Kobe Bryant thing we're going to have to talk about because there's some things that, just some feelings that I have. And there was a very special letter that he wrote that I think from a political standpoint we can all learn from. So stay tuned for that later in the show, especially if you're a Kobe Bryant fan. We've got impeachment hearings. We got Middle East peace talks. We've got political correctness that we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to start off with the impeachment hearings just because it's in the news. I'll be honest with you. I really don't have a lot to say about this anymore. Everything that there is to say has really been said already over the last 2.5 months. The only difference now is that the Democrats are just desperate in calling witnesses. And particularly, I guess, the witness of the week this week is John Bolton. Someone they could have subpoenaed while in the House. But they chose to rush through impeachment. I don't really have a lot of sympathy for them if he doesn't become a witness. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't even put him there. I mean, this could just drag on forever. He hasn't been very reliable in the past. Now that they want the Senate, the House, the Democrats, they want the Senate to do what the House's job should have been. The House's job is to put these people and put these witnesses up. And maybe if the House didn't ramrod the process of impeachment in 48 days, maybe they wouldn't be in this situation. Now they're fighting for their lives to try to get witnesses to testify. It's not the Senate's job for them to do that. And to be honest with you, I hope he doesn't. Not because I'm afraid of him at all. I'm not. But just, again, after Bolton, there'll be somebody else, and there'll be somebody else. And at some point, the nonsense has to stop. If you listen to the CNN and left-leaning media, you would think the Republicans are in trouble because of John Bolton and his supposed testimony. The left wants to point out that the White House has issued a formal threat to John Bolton to keep him from publishing his book. This is not true. It's not true in the least. The National Security Council lawyers sent the letter regarding Bolton 3 days before the New York Times even reported on Bolton's book manuscript. Not a day or two ago, like the left would have you believe. The purpose of the letter is to make sure that classified information is not released. That's for the security of the country. It's the NSC's, the National Security Council's, job to do this. If classified information is leaked out, then the NSC is blamed for not looking into the matter first. And as we see, if the NSC does do their job, it's some kind of collusion, conspiracy theory process of this impeachment trial. Obviously, the NFC can't worry about how the left is going to twist their story. They have a job to do. And if their job is, hey, Johnny boy, before you decide that you're going to publish this book, let us just make sure that there's not classified information that you're leaking. If there is, we can't have that. For obvious reasons, anybody with that has a little bit of sanity about them would understand that. So the left making a big deal of it, again, it's just throwing shade at what the truth is, and the truth is they got nothing. There's also cracks in the armor of the left. Democrat senators like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema and Doug Jones, they all appear to be considering an acquittal for this impeachment, which could happen Friday, all right, today. Or tomorrow, this is being taped today, being Thursday. But to the left media, they tell you Mitch McConnell is scared and shaking in his boots that the Republicans are the ones cracking. I don't see that to be the case. The desperateness of the left is seeping through their pores. They seem to sweat more and more with every news conference. They are so desperate to change the minds of Americans regarding the job Donald Trump is doing, but just the opposite is happening. His approval rating is the highest that it's been in the 3 years that he's been in office. This has turned out to be a disaster for the left. Trump is more popular than ever. The left continues to embarrass themselves. And they're in the midst of losing their many seats in the House over this. Way to go, Nancy. Way to go, Jerry Nadler. And the shifty one, Adam Schiff. Way to go, guys. This is completely boomeranging. It's completely backfiring on them. President Trump is already tweeting game over. I think it kind of is. I think he's right. And this is after the video of Barack Obama that circulated. I saw it yesterday. Barack Obama, of all people, showing how little credibility John Bolton has. There's also reports that Bolton has said in the past that Maria Yovanovitch, the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, who everyone was up in arms that the president fired her, that she should be investigated and removed. Do the Dems not realize that the president of the United States can remove anyone that he wants for that position or from that position, and he owes no one. He owes absolutely nobody an explanation as to why he does it. You serve at the pleasure of the president. Of course they know this. The Dems know this. They're just counting on you not knowing this. Personally, guys, I'm quite disgusted at this point. What a shame, or what a sham, I should say. What a sham is being played on the American public. To listen to Adam Schiff, who pointed out that Bolton's book comes out on March 17th, and he would love, I'm sure he would love to prolong this impeachment thing till then. The left couldn't be happy. They couldn't be happy with the Mueller report and the $32 million that was spent on that investigation. They couldn't be happy with the conclusion that there was no obstruction, no collusion. No, we have to investigate more. We have to dig more. We have to prod more. As Maxine Waters says, impeachment is whatever they make it out to be. What a disgusting comment that is. What a slap in the face to the government of the United States, the strongest, most powerful country in the world, and to just disregard our laws like that. And she's a representative. The madness has to stop. These people that are continuing to waste time in our government are not serving the people. They are serving themselves. They are serving their own agenda. And we're just sitting here taking it. They will continue to throw ideas and they will continue to throw lies at us to prolong this, hoping to find something, hoping to find anything that might grab the public's attention. This has to stop. I am praying that by 24 hours from now, there's an acquittal to this and that the country can move on. Because this is one of the things that I do think will happen. Do I think the left will try to impeach him again for something else? Absolutely. I really do believe that they would try to do that. The thing is this, the more they try to impeach, the bigger hole that they're going to dig for themselves. The more the public is going to be turned off by the left. The more people are going to be saying, like I hear it all the time, how much money is being wasted? And I get it. Now, is it a waste in regards to that they're spending money for this impeachment trial? Well, there's salaries that are being paid for nothing. So therefore, we're paying these people to not do their job because this is not their job. This impeachment process should have never occurred. You bring up bribery, and that's not even one of the indications or one of the articles that they put out there to go to the Senate. I mean, this is just a waste of colossal time. And yes, it's a waste of money. It may not be money spent on an investigation, but these people have a job to do, and instead we're paying them to do this. These people need to be held accountable. And that is where you guys step in. Your vote matters. If you're as tired as I am of seeing this circus run by shady representatives like Schiff and Pelosi, your voice in this matter is done through the ballot box. We have to get out and vote. And as I said on the show last week, and I will continue to say on the show, the Christian vote counts. We have to be able to have a say as who is the authority that we're being governed by. Right now, there's no governing going on. There's a trial going on that's a sham. That's what's going on. And now they're going to bring in Pelosi. And then they're going to bring in somebody else. And every stall tactic that they can probably do, any stall tactic they can probably have, simply to get this thing elongated, prolonged, so that the illusion that Donald Trump is doing a bad job continues. His poll ratings are the highest they've ever been. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Jerry, and whoever else we got to thank. Oh, the left stream, the left media, the CNNs and the MSNBCs of the world. Guys, that's my take on impeachment. I'm kind of done with it. I want to move on. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about the Trump Middle East peace plan and what our thoughts on it are. Guys, we'll be back after the break.
My soul down in the bosom. Rock, rock, rock down in the bosom. You rock my soul down. You rock, rock, oh yeah. Oh, Lordy, Lord, oh, rock my soul.
That is some of my Elvis Presley favorite stuff right there, man. I don't know what it is about that little track right there with the gospel, but we're going to play that. That's just some good stuff right there, man. All right. So this Trump Middle East peace deal, we've got to talk about this because this is big news. And this does pertain to Scripture. So by all means, let's get into this. All right. President Donald Trump earlier this week on Tuesday comes out with this new U.S. peace plan. Every president that I can remember has attempted to try to find a way for there to be peace in the Middle East. This president being no exception. President Trump in particular, though, would have an interest in this because he was finally the one president who said that he would recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and he actually did it. So he does have more skin in the game. No doubt about it. He said on Tuesday, forging peace between Israelis and Palestinians may be the most difficult challenge of all. All prior administrations have tried and bitterly failed, but I was not elected to do small things or shy away from big problems. You go ahead, Donald Trump. That's exactly the attitude I want to see from a president. Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the U.S. peace plan for the Middle East was a realistic path to durable peace. So is it? That's the question on the table. Does Donald Trump have a chance of doing what no other president has been able to do? Now, what is in the deal? From the Jerusalem Post, this is what it said. The Trump plan will allow Israel to retain about 20% of the West Bank. Israel would be called upon to cede, meaning give away, some land in the south near Egypt's border with Gaza. The plan also leaves open the possibility that Israel could give up the triangle. This is 3 Arab cities in Galilee to a future Palestinian state, subject to negotiations. Israel will be allowed to keep 15 communities as enclaves with the future Palestinian state. Israel would be responsible for their security. Under the plan, there could be a Palestinian state in 4 years if the Palestinians meet certain conditions. The total area of the state would encompass about 70% of the West Bank, including what is termed Areas A and B. The Post explains that the state will only come into existence in 4 years if the Palestinians accept the plan, if the Palestinian Authority stops paying terrorists and inciting terrorism, and if Hamas and Islamic Jihad put down their weapons. In addition, the American plan calls on the Palestinians to give up corruption, respect human rights, freedom of religion, and a free press so that they don't have a failed state. All right, if the Palestinian Authority meet these conditions, the United States would recognize the state and promise a massive aid package. And it says a few more things, but that's the gist of this all. Now, the question is this. Will the Palestinians agree to this plan? I don't believe they will. The first reaction from the Palestinian leader, Mohammed Abbas, said, we say 1,000 no's to the deal of the century. And then he called it the slap of the century. Who knows if he even read the plan? He was so quick to comment on it. Now, it gets interesting, though. President Trump's message to the Palestinian leader was, President Abbas, I want you to know that if you choose the path to peace, America and many other countries, we will be there to help you in so many different ways. And we will be there every step of the way. But let's look at this a little further. Donald Trump knows the history of prior presidents failing this. Why would he think that he might succeed? It was interesting to hear him say that he thought the Palestinians would balk at the plan, but then he added this caveat, at first. That at first caught my attention. It was as if he was saying, I know that they will say no to it at first, but then they will actually see what the deal is. And maybe, just maybe, they will find their way to the bargaining table and things can be negotiated. And I think if that can happen, if he can actually get them to the negotiating table, then Donald Trump has a chance at doing something special. Because negotiating, after all, that's what he does. Now, Martin Luther King once said, we cannot influence a table that we are not seated at. The Palestinians would do well, in my opinion, to be seated with the president, unless they would like things to continue the way they are, which, let's face it, right now, it is not good. One thing President Trump has, and he does better than any president we've ever had, he knows where his leverage is and he deals from strength. A little different. Maybe he's got a shot at this. I don't think so, but let's see. President Trump said that the United States would commit $50 billion in the new Palestinian state, assuring that 1 million Palestinian jobs would be created and no Palestinians shall be uprooted from their homes. That would sound pretty good to most people. But then he wisely added, and this was smart, the people deserve far better lives. Far better lives. They deserve a chance to achieve their extraordinary potential. The Palestinians have been trapped in the circle of terrorism, violence, and extreme poverty. The president, this is smart. He's reminding them of why they should come to the bargaining table. The question is, will they? Past history tells us no, they're not coming. The two-state solution has always been proposed. It has to be proposed. You can't just say, all right, guys, we're kicking somebody out. That's not really logical. Nobody's going to want to hear that. So the thing is, Israel has repeatedly given up land to find a way to live in peace. A substantial amount of land, to be honest with you. And the Palestinians have always refused. They want all of it or they want none of it. This is very strange since they never officially had any of it in the first place. And that's, people just think that, Palestine was actually a country. No, that wasn't the case. For hundreds of years, that land was ruled by the British Empire. Before that, it was ruled by the Ottoman Empire. In 1947, the United Nations partition plan offered to divide the land 50-50 with the Jews. The Jews agreed. The Arabs, they rejected the idea. And no matter how many proposals have been put out there since, the answer is always no. They want all the land and they want the Jews gone. It's really as simple as that, and they don't want to accept anything else. My question to you is this. This has been going on since the 40s. How is it working out for you so far? I mean, Palestine didn't even have a flag until like 1964. How are you going to call yourself that you own that state? You weren't a country. You couldn't even put a flag up. The other thing is, I've always found this a little bit puzzling, especially now. If I was representing the Palestinian people, I would want to work with the Jews. From an economic standpoint, you stand to flourish immensely from working side by side with them. When you see that Israel is one of the world's leaders, I'm going to give you a rundown of just some of the things. They're one of the world leaders in producing fruits. I believe the only land that rivals it is right here in the San Joaquin Valley. They're the 10th largest producer of cut flowers, bringing in over $200 million a year in exported flowers. Now, you say to me, what's the big deal? This is amazing considering that Israel is not conducive for farming. 50% of the country is desert. Yet they're innovative enough to be on par with the San Joaquin Valley in producing fruit and flowers. How do they do that? Nearly 90% of wastewater in Israel is treated for reuse, most of it in agricultural irrigation. Do you know what the country that comes in second to that is? Spain. And I said 90%, it's about 87% to be exact regarding what Israel reusing wastewater. Spain comes in second at 20%. The United States reuses 1%. Israel's innovation in this field has been absolutely incredible. Do you think if you're a Palestinian that you could learn a little something from that? I would think so. They have a tremendous amount of natural gas that makes them self-sufficient when it comes to energy. Israel's military, for its size, is one of the greatest military forces in the world today. They have a $20 billion defense budget. Now, that may not sound like a lot when it's compared to us, the United States of America, but keep in mind, Israel's the size of New Jersey. They have approximately 4,200 tanks. They got 700 fighter planes, 5 submarines. For a country the size of New Jersey, man, they are no joke. They are no joke. In technology, Israel spends over 4% of its GDP on research and development in technology. It is an absolute powerhouse in the field of cybersecurity. The world looks to them on how to be protected from being hacked from the likes of China. They look to Israel. Why would you not want to be linked up with a country that has been innovating like that, has that kind of innovation? You got to be kidding me. This is all remarkable because we have letters and books telling us how desolate Israel was. No growth of plant, food, anything, just desolate. Mark Twain, he goes out there in the 1860s and he writes a book about it called Innocent Abroad, which is discussed and verified. I mean, it was just desolate. But then you look at Ezekiel 36 in the Old Testament. This book was written 2,600 years ago. And it blows your mind because the things Ezekiel writes about regarding future events, he had no way of knowing. It would be impossible for him to know. In short, this is what he says, or it says. Again, Ezekiel chapter 36, it's fascinating. It says, Israel will once again be inhabited. The people multiplied and Israel will be fruitful and prosper more than ever before. God said he would take the Jews out of all the other countries and bring them back into their own land. The land he gave their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The land will produce amazing food. No more famines. The land that once laid bare and bleak will be so cultivated that it will look like the Garden of Eden. The ruins will be rebuilt, and all the nations will know that this is all because of the Lord. All that has happened. No nation has ever been dispersed of its people and found their way back home. Usually that's because wherever a nation's people go, they kind of intermingle with the people of where they're at, and you never really hear about that country again. Not the Jews. They were removed from their land twice, actually 3 times, depending on how far back you go. Somehow kept their culture wherever they went and find their way back home. It's remarkable. I mean, talk about a resilient people. In 1948, their land was once again given to them, and what they've done with it in barely over 70 years is unbelievable. It is truly remarkable. In my opinion, the Palestinians would do very well to come to the negotiating table and figure out a way to live in peace with them. And that just makes sense. Or else you're just sitting under the thumb and Israel just gets stronger and stronger. I don't understand the fact that you won't even go to the table to negotiate. I want to say one more thing. If, and it's a big if, capital letters, big if Donald Trump would pull this off, if he could pull this off, it would be the most remarkable thing any president in the history of the United States has ever done. And unfortunately, he would still be hated on by the left. He would still not win a Nobel Peace Prize. He would not be Man of the Year. He would just be hated and hatred spewed. The words would be spewed. The left and the mainstream media would still be who they are. Trump derangement syndrome. They would still suffer from Trump derangement syndrome level 10. That's what they would be. That's who they are. It doesn't matter. The guy, you hear it on Fox all the time. The guy can cure cancer. I'm telling you, if he brought this together, if he could bring this to fruition, he would still be hated on. Something no president has ever been able to do. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't. I just don't see it happening. It would be interesting. It would be very interesting. I just don't see it. We'll see. I hope so. All right, guys. Just had to talk about that. When we come back, we're going to talk about political correctness. Interesting article. And I am going to get into the Kobe Bryant thing. So stick around. You're listening to Politics and Scripture on Talk Radio 1680 KGED. me see. Kathy. Yeah. I'm talking. Saying Maggie, Val. Guys, I appreciate you checking in. Charles, appreciate you, man. All right, guys. Thank you so much. All right. All right. All right, how great is our God, man? I love that song. All right, yeah, we're gonna. I want to talk about political correctness. It's just gone too far, and the people are finally seeing it. A December poll showed that greater than 80% of likely voters agree that political correctness has gone too far. The poll was conducted online among 1,000 likely voters by a company called GS Strategy Group. More than 40% of these polled were Democrats, nearly 34% Republicans, and about 23 independent. Here's a breakdown of some of the numbers. More than 57% strongly agreed, and almost 24% somewhat agreed with the statement, political correctness has gone too far. Today, everybody's offended by the smallest thing. That's over 80%. That's 81% of the people saying that. Only 13.4% disagreed, and 4.8% strongly disagreed. I don't know how you can disagree with that statement. You got to be a real strong lefty to think that. But all right. The poll also asked how American businesses should respond to political correctness. More than 65% picked the response, there is no way for American businesses to make everyone happy. They need to run their businesses in a way that appeals to the broadest swath of Americans. Yeah, I agree with that. You're not going to make everybody happy, so try to do the right thing by your business and by the people. When it comes to the issues that American business community needs to address, what American business communities need to address, 43% said the most important of the opinions given was that ensuring American workers receive competitive wages and benefits. The next most popular response at 10.6 was that people need to increase their skill to meet the workforce demand for the 21st century. Asked about the impression of the business community, more than 56% picked the response that businesses are most interested in maximizing profits for shareholders. Less than 20% picked providing customers the best quality product for their best price. Hopefully, people want to provide the customers the best quality product for the best price, and that would help maximize profit. That's what we all hope for. Granted, I know that doesn't always happen. Less than 7% said compensating their employees fairly. Also in that survey, 71% agreed that political correctness silences discussion society needs to have. Why is that just 71%? The results showed a partisan split in the question. 78% of moderates, 87% of conservatives agreed, but only 42% of liberals and 32% of strong liberals did agree. Of course not. Of course not. That number is easy to figure out. At the time, 70% of conservatives and 76% of strong conservatives agreed that the political climate prevented them from expressing their beliefs. We're going to talk about that in a second. So the survey concentrated mainly about businesses, but it is telling in regards to what the American public thinks, what they feel about society today. 81% who believe the political correctness has gone too far is a good indication as to why President Trump is taking in such a huge amounts of financial support. People in general are sick of this, and they have someone willing to speak plainly and not care what someone may think about his tone or his words or things like that. The problem is usually not what he says, as much as it is people feeling as if he's a bad man and therefore he must be saying it with bad intention, which is totally ridiculous. Political correctness has gone too far, and it's time for the pendulum to swing the other way. What is going on in our universities today is insane. When the students start telling the faculty which books are to be used to teach based on the color of the author, or decide which clubs or groups are to be tolerated on campus based on certain ideologies, and the school turns a blind eye to it, it's time. It's time to find another school for your child to go to. It's absolutely absurd. Well, I saw something in my notes. Let me see if I can find this because it was actually very, very interesting to me. Here it is. This should be fun. These were some of the headlines that I saw from Legal Insurrection. 1. College suspends football coach for saying he would like to have dinner with Hitler. Maybe he just wants to have dinner with Hitler because he wants to know what the heck were you thinking. The college suspended him. Another one. Feminist professor accused of transphobia needs bodyguards due to threats. This is going on in college campuses. Yale art history course being dropped over focus on straight white males. The nonsense has to stop at some point. Why do I chime up? I hit on this a lot in my shows, and this is the reason. Abraham Lincoln once said, the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation becomes the philosophy of the government in the next generation. Parents, you cannot turn a blind eye to this. You cannot turn a blind eye to what's going on in your kid's classroom. These universities will indoctrinate your kids into a creature that you won't even recognize when they get out of school. And the funny part is, you paid for it. That's the beauty. That's the funny part of it. You paid for it. Now, what you have to understand is that political correctness has been going on for hundreds of years. It's not like it's something new. It's just that now it has found a stronger footing in our universities. It's found a stronger footing in our theaters, and now in our media. It snuck up on us and now has indoctrinated a younger generation who has never faced the adversity that socialism brings, and these kids can't appreciate what they have now. How could they? The schools are rewriting the history books as we speak so that children won't ever know what made this country great. The killing of America is happening before our very eyes. And God forbid you try to say something. You're then branded an ignorant, uncaring, horrible, racist, homophobe, xenophobe, blah, 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 blah. Not because they can back it up with facts. Facts don't matter. It's because their emotions got triggered and they didn't have a safe space to run. So they didn't have a safe space to run to. So they had to start name calling, no matter how off base the name calling is. We're told to be open-minded, but don't ask those who oppose you for the same courtesy. Did you get the memo? Tolerance is only one-sided. People are getting sick of it. Earlier this week, 2 newspapers in Massachusetts endorsed Andrew Yang over Elizabeth Warren. And Elizabeth Warren represents Massachusetts. And they're not endorsing her. The reason they gave is because of Yang's refusal to participate in cancel culture and ripping the Democrat frontrunners for embracing the ugly, nasty tone throughout their campaign. He's getting endorsed by Elizabeth Warren's home state because he's not trying to do that cancel, that SJW thing. He's not trying to be a social justice warrior. If that doesn't open Elizabeth Warren's eyes, I don't know what does. I have other stories I wanted to get to with her, but I'm not going to be able to do it today. Maybe we'll hit it next week. Yang said, to me, it's obvious. You're going to have a hard time persuading anyone to your viewpoint if you're not willing to talk to them. And that it's going to be very hard to bring our country together to solve problems that affect all of us. If, 40 to 50% of Americans are somehow not worth talking to. He's right. George Orwell, who, by the way, I'm just starting to read his book now, Animal Farm. George Orwell, the novelist, once said, if liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. Thomas Sowell, he wrote, does anybody seriously believe that hate speech prohibits or prohibitions will be applied to Muslims demonizing Jews, to blacks demonizing whites, or to women demonizing men? What are Christians to do in these situations? How do we handle this? Step 1, we can't shut up. You can't shut up and do nothing. That will never work. For one, when government and culture is flipped on its head and America doesn't stand for all the freedoms we have today, if you did nothing when it happened, you can't complain when it does happen. Bottom line. Second, you being quiet is not enough for those who oppose your view. They're not satisfied with silence. They want you to fully accept their thoughts and feelings. Not only is your freedom of speech gone, but how you think has to be streamlined with their feelings. Remember what happened with Chick-fil-A? They succumbed to some of the LGBTQ alphabet soup demands, and that wasn't good enough. Then they had to start pandering for Chick-fil-A's money. If you feel that Christ is the one you take your marching orders from, you need to gear up for battle, man, because he needs those who are willing to speak up when something needs to be said. We are asked to be the salt and light of the world. Well, your light cannot lead the way if you're burying your head in the sand. If you cannot speak, then support those who can. And if you cannot do that, then you must get out and vote. The Christian vote has to get out there. A statement has to be made. You at least have a voice in the ballot box. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, God did not give us a spirit of timidity, but a spirit of power and of love and of self-discipline. The Apostle Paul said something very interesting in 1 Corinthians 9. Starting in verse 20, he said, to the Jews I become like a Jew to win the Jews over. To those under the law I become like one under the law so as to win those under the law. In verse 22, he said, to the weak I became weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all men so that by all possible means I might save some. What is Paul saying? 1, find common ground. 2, don't have a know-it-all attitude. 3, make others feel accepted. 4, be sensitive to what the other side is saying. But don't, and I repeat, do not compromise your thoughts. Be steadfast in your conviction. Colossians 4:6, let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, meaning give your speech a little flavor, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. Political correctness based on lies and emotion serves no one, especially the one speaking it. All it takes for bad things to happen is for good people to let it happen. That's all it takes. Ephesians 4:15 says, speak the truth in love. That's not too much to ask. That's not too much to ask. All right? But political correctness has gone too far. It's silencing the Christian vote, which is why I do the show. If Christians came out in mass and voted this November, we would crush this thing, and we would make a very big statement to the left that this isn't about just your feelings. We all have feelings. What are the facts? What are the law? What do the laws say? Can you abide to it? Can you see how much of a sham this impeachment is? It's got to stop, people. It just has to stop. So, anyway, I hope that's resonating. I really, really do. All right, guys, listen to Talk Radio 1680 KGED. When we come back, my take on Kobe Bryant, if we have time, a little Super Bowl talk. All right, guys, we'll be back after the break. Left can afford it because then the right's going to get their witnesses, and I don't think they want any part of that. So I'm with you. I'm leaning towards no witnesses at the moment. But good question. All right, guys. Talk Radio 1680 KGD. John Meccico in the house with Politics and Scripture. Lisa Moreno will be back with us next week. We hope. I'm sure she will. All right. Man, this past weekend was just so heart-wrenching for just millions of people around the world. A sports legend and a cultural icon. He passed away at the young age of 41 years old, and as you all know by now, I'm talking about Kobe Bryant. I first heard the news when a coworker walked in and said he was dead. I stared in disbelief and asked, "Are you sure?" And then sure enough, everybody else started picking up their iPhones and looking at different news media outlets, and it was true. My heart sank. When I found out about the way he died in a helicopter crash, I immediately asked, is there anybody with him? Initially, there was no news of a family member being with him, and I felt some sense of relief, although I still felt sick to my stomach. As a sports fan and an NBA fan, many of us, those on Facebook, you can see what I'm wearing today. It's not a Lakers shirts at my 76ers pullover, but I am an NBA fan. Many of us have seen a lot of Kobe recently. He was seen at a few Laker games. He was also in Brooklyn with his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna. They would sit courtside. Just watching them, it was pretty easy to tell that he had a very special bond. She loved the game, and she was able to pick the brain of one of the most intelligent minds the basketball world has ever known. They were always smiling, and then the news came that this beautiful 13-year-old daughter of his, who loved her dad so much, was on that helicopter with him. And I had to fight back tears. I'll be very honest with you. My heart was broken. Even when I see the tributes as of even this morning, I just get teared up. I called my brother-in-law a little bit later in that day, and he was an emotional mess. He, like Kobe, he has daughters, and he just, him and my sister, they just pour everything they can. And I'm never going to know that bond, what it's like with a father and daughter. But boy, I could really feel for it. He was a great athlete. I wrote a whole bunch of stuff here, which I won't have the time to get to. But I mean, he was just an assassin on the court, just this killer instinct that maybe a handful of people in the history of sports that had. His intelligence, his will to win, his ability to dig deep, his basketball IQ was off the charts. A friend of mine came up to me this weekend and said, I'm not even a basketball fan and I'm feeling the pain of this. The guy was just a cultural icon, and that's exactly what he was. He was an example of what it was like to be human, to make mistakes, but not let those mistakes define who you are. Those mistakes would not stop him from being his very best version of himself. Man was clearly loved, not just by the basketball world, but the sports world. I mean, there were people around the world just giving tributes to him. As I watched all this, I couldn't help but think about the brevity of life, just how short life really is. In this country, we are fighting over everything. We're fighting over politics. We're fighting over religion. We're fighting over sports. You name it, we fight over it. We look back one day, we're going to ask ourselves, did I spend my time wisely? Did I spend my time giving to the things that were the most important to me? Or did I pick fights that I didn't need to pick fights about? Did I let work get in the way of relationships? Was it worth fighting for those I love over the petty things? With those I love over the petty things that I missed, and I missed the most important thing. God's going to ask us one day, what did you do with the talents I gave you? I don't know what Kobe Bryant's religious beliefs were, and that is not the reason for the talk. But to the first question, what did you do with the talents I gave you? God must have looked at Kobe every game and said, I cannot be prouder of you. Kobe poured everything he had into his God-given talents, and he influenced millions around the world. He was a great example for us. To give what we can with what we have and let God handle the rest. Psalms 34:18 says, the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Lord, I ask that those family members know that you are near to them. The other thing that I want to talk about is there was a letter that went out very recently that talked about Kobe writing a letter to his younger self. And I want to read this to end the show. Dear 17-year-old self, when your Laker dream comes true tomorrow, you need to figure out a way to invest in the future and your family and friends. This sounds simple, and you may think it's a no-brainer, but it takes some time to think. On its future. I said invest. I did not say give. Let me explain. Purely giving material things to your siblings and friends may appear to be the right decision. You love them, and they were always there for you growing up. So it's the only right that they should share in your success and all that comes with it. So you buy them a car, you buy them a big house, you pay all their bills, you want them to live a beautiful, comfortable life, right? But that the day will come when you realize that as much as you believed you were doing the right thing, you were actually holding them back. You will come to understand that you were taking care of them because it made you feel good. It made you happy to see them smiling without a care in the world. And that was extremely selfish of you. While you were feeling satisfied with yourself, you were slowly eating away at their own dreams and ambitions. You were adding material things to their lives, but subtracting the most precious gift of all, independence and growth. Understand that you are about to be a leader of the family, and that involves making tough decisions, even if your siblings and friends do not understand them at that time. Invest in their future. Don't just give. Use your success, your wealth, and influence to put them in the best position to realize their own dreams and find their true purpose. Put them through school, set them up with job interviews, help them become leaders in their own right. Hold them to the same level of hard work and dedication that it took for you to get to where you are now and where you will eventually go. I'm writing you now so that you can begin this process immediately, and so that you don't have to deal with the hurt and struggle of weaning them off the addiction that you facilitated. That addiction only leads to anger, resentment, and jealousy from everybody involved, including yourself. As time goes on, you will see them grow independently and have their own ambitions and their own lives. And your relationship with all of them will be much better as a result. There's plenty more I could write to you, but at 17, I know you don't have the attention span to sit through 2,000 words. The next time I write to you, I may touch on the challenges of mixing blood with business. The most important advice I can give you is to make sure your parents remain parents and not managers. Before you sign that first contract, figure out the right budget for your parents, one that will allow them to live beautifully while also growing your business and setting people up for long-term success. That way your children's kids and their kids will be able to invest in their own futures when the time comes. Your life is about to change and things are about to come at you very fast, but just let this sink in a bit when you lay down at night after another 9-hour training. Trust me, setting things up right from the beginning will avoid a ton of tears and heartache, some of you of which remains to this day. Much love, Kobe. Folks, I'm going to end with that. There's a lot to learn from that letter, and maybe we'll touch more on it next week. All right, guys, next time I'm with you. Thank you for coming in and listening. Let me share with you politics and scripture. This is John Meccico with Lisa Moreno, and we will catch up next week. Thank you, guys.